Get the whole Young Turks 3-hour show by going to theyoungturks.com. If you become a member, you get the whole show, plus a very fun post-game show as well. See you there. All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Wild and woolly hour for you. The beginning of the State of the Union speech is towards the end of this hour. Of course, we're going to cover it here for you guys on the Young Turks. And we do play-by-play on all the speeches. You know that. So just stay around here, and we got a fun hour beginning this hour at the very least. Okay, and now I got unbelievable stories for you guys. I got a Tea Party guy. You won't believe what he did. Okay, that's hence why I called it unbelievable. And I got a lot of news on the State of the Union and the financial mess we're in. Okay, but before we do all that, I want to start 1,000,000% random for this hour. I'm going to go with Mel Gibson. Okay. Now, here's the situation with Mel Gibson. You remember he got busted, and he went on this anti-Semitic rant and said, the Jews start all the wars, et cetera, et cetera. Then he went on to comment on the sugar breasts of a female officer. I'm cleaning that one up. But all these fun things that he did. Now, he's getting interviewed by a local reporter here in L.A., Sam Rubin, from KTLA. And Sam's going to ask him about that. Makes all the sense in the world, right? But apparently not to Mel Gibson. He's going to get agitated. Okay. Now, keep in mind, the reporter's name is Sam Rubin. Okay? Because Mel Gibson's going to make that relevant here. Let's watch.
Some people are going to welcome you back, and other people are going to be like, he should never come back.
Why?
Because of what happened before.
What happened before?
The remarks that were attributed to you.
That were attributed to me.
Yeah.
That I didn't necessarily make.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But, I gather you have a dog in this fight.
Pardon me?
You have a dog in this fight? Or are you being impartial?
You tell me I'm trying to be impartial, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'm back. And I hope it works out. And I hope people will graciously accept me back.
A dog in this fight? You see where he's going with that? What does he mean, a dog in this fight? He's trying to refer to the fact that Sam, I don't know if Sam's Jewish, but is likely Jewish, Sam Rubin, right? Or at least that's what Mel Gibson thinks, right? And he's like, you got a dog in this fight? You're one of them? Come on, dude, you can't do that, man. That's crazy, dog. No. And comments that were attributed to me. Come on. You apologize for them left and right. You went and, talked to the Anti-Defamation League and told them how sorry you were. No, they just attributed to you. Yeah, you made those comments. And now you're going to go at Sam Rubin with, you got a dog in this fight? That's crazy, man. But I am, now, it's terrible and offensive, but I'm also slightly amused by it. And from now on, that'll be my code word for, referring to somebody's race. You got a dog in this fight? All right, okay. Mel, what am I going to do with you? What comments? What do you mean? What happened before? All right. Now that I've amused myself, let's go back to politics, okay? Now, Lynn Paramore over at Huffington Post did something interesting. She's the editor of apparently New Deal 2.0, and she asked a bunch of prominent, economists, journalists, etc., to say, hey, ask them, what would you say if you were Obama in tonight's State of the Union speech? And I really liked some of these, and so I want to read them to you. Just three. First, I love Bill Blacks. He's, of course, Associate Professor of Economics and Law at University of Missouri, one of the top regulators after the SNL debacle. We've had him on the show many times, and I think he's right on point. Here's what he said. Here's what I'd like to hear Obama say, quote, 2 weeks ago, I told the American people that the Wall Street bonuses were outrageous. I have now learned that if the big banks used honest accounting, they would not have reported huge profits and could not have paid these bonuses. I also learned that Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke supported this move to dishonest accounting. I therefore withdraw the proposed renomination of Chairman Bernanke and direct the federal regulatory agencies to require honest accounting forthwith and block any bonuses not shown to be the result of honest, prudent profits. What are the chances that Obama says that? I would put it at significantly less than zero. But God, that would be awesome. Could you imagine? But that's the thing. I mean, guys like Bill Black, who actually are proven regulators, who've done this before and worked for the benefit of the American taxpayer, they're never going to get listened to. I mean, it's a joke, right? You read that and you think, no way Obama going to do that. No way. And is Bill Black wrong? Not remotely wrong. He's 100% right, right? I forthwith withdraw my nomination for Ben Bernanke. Come on. Okay. You know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to go off on Bernanke again. Never miss an opportunity. So, we found out yesterday that we've got these documents, and the Republicans have their hands on them apparently because of a whistleblower, and they named exactly which documents they are, saying that Ben Bernanke knew at the Fed and was warned by his staff not to agree to the AIG bailouts, directing 100% of money for these toxic assets to Goldman Sachs, Societe Generale, and some other banks, okay, including foreign banks, that he knew and he ignored the advice given to him, okay? Now, those are what you would proverbially call smoking guns. So right now, as things stand, there are 4 Democrats against Ben Bernanke, but there are 12 Republicans against him, and an independent that you could put in the Democratic category, obviously, with Bernie Sanders. So let's say 5 Democrats, 12 Republicans, okay? But they've got 35 senators who are on his side, and they're mainly Democrats. And they're about to do this legislative maneuver where all of a sudden you don't need 60 votes to confirm him, although all we've ever heard in the last year is you need 60 votes to pass anything in the Senate, right? All of a sudden they're only going to need 50 votes. If these clown Democrats push Bernanke through, and then we find out about those documents, and those documents become public, the ones that we already know the Republicans have, right? Can you imagine what a political disaster that is? So Obama, Geithner, the White House, and Democratic leadership push Bernanke through, using by hook or by crook, with every political trick, okay? And then the Republicans mainly vote against him, and then when we find out, in fact, Bernanke did know about the backdoor bailouts and did not listen to the advice of people saying, don't do it, it's going to cost the American taxpayer money he doesn't have to pay, then it looks like the Democrats are on the side of the bankers, and the Republicans are on the side of the people. Now, you and I know that in 99% of the cases, that is in fact exactly the reverse. Well, not exactly the reverse. The Republicans are totally on the side of the bankers, and so are most of the Democrats, okay? But even if they are on the side of the bankers, this is not something that you're going to be able to get away with. This is something that's going to be a political killing field. What are you doing? I mean, you're going to fall on your sword, Obama and the Democrats, to protect the bankers that much, and you're going to let the Republicans steal the mantle of populism and partly earn it. Hey, look, they vote against Bernanke, and that's a vote that counts, okay? And they'll be able to proudly say, and they'll be right, hey, I voted against Bernanke because that guy did not do right by the American taxpayer. All he was doing was protecting the bankers. So I'm telling you right now, okay, take note, okay? If they hurry up and confirm Bernanke, it's a political time bomb. And when it explodes in the Democrats' faces, guess what they'll say? No one could have seen it coming. I'm telling you right now, I see it coming. It would be a terrible mistake to confirm him. Terrible mistake. Well, it's not like it'll be the first terrible mistake the Democrats make, so look forward to it. All right, now, going back to the different things that the experts would say if they were in Obama's position. Here's what Eliot Spitzer, former governor of New York, again, one of the guys who really knew how to regulate Wall Street, says he would say if he were in his place. Quote, never have so many done so much for so few who needed so little. Now is the time for those who benefited from the bailouts to contribute to rebuilding our economy on a foundation that can genuinely compete over the next 50 years. I'm coming for him. No, I added that last part. But if Spitzer was still around, he would be coming for him. You remember what they did when Spitzer resigned? Of course, there was a scandal about the prostitution, etc., and so he just stepped down as governor of New York. They literally popped champagne on Wall Street because this was the sheriff. This was the one guy who was the cop on the beat. And as soon as they took him down, funny enough, by some bank statements, Interesting. Okay, look. I'm not alleging anything, and I don't know what happened there and why the FBI was onto it. Did the banks feed him those, under $10,000 payments that Spitzer was taking out to pay to the women? It matters and doesn't matter. I mean, if it was proven, it would matter a lot. Okay, but it doesn't matter because Spitzer did do it. But God, wouldn't it be great to have him back? And hey, look, I've gone over this 100 times. I couldn't give a damn who he had sex with. Okay, that guy actually did the right stuff, and it is very convenient that he's no longer around for Wall Street. All right, now one more. It's from L. Randall Wray. He's a professor of economics at the University of Missouri. I want to quote this to you because I found a lib who way outlibs me, and I feel good about that. If he was in Obama's situation, here's what he would say. I am directing my administration to come up with a plan that will guarantee a decent job at a decent pay for any American who wants to work, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of education or training, and regardless of previous work experience. I want these to be productive jobs, I don't know what that means, jobs, that will enhance well-being of everyone in our country. It is time that we take seriously the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which guarantees the right to a job. This program will be permanent, and it will ensure that from this day forward, the United States economy will operate with true, full employment. We will look to the New Deal Job Creations Program, but we will go further because we will end forever the horror of involuntary unemployment. Now, you got to give it to this fellow right here because that's a lib if I ever heard one. Okay, my God. You read that and you think, okay, now, that dude is on the left. Okay, I'm in the center. Now, how are you going to guarantee everybody jobs? How does that work? Okay, I'm sure he's got a plan. And you know what? Maybe we should get him on the show and talk about it, right? Because, okay, regardless of race or gender, yeah, okay, I get that. That makes perfect sense. Regardless of job experience, what am I going to do? Okay, I need to hire an editor for the Young Turks. What am I going to do? I'm going to hire a guy who's been taking care of cats? How does that work? Look, I mean, I'm probably being totally unfair to the good professor, right? But no, I'm not in favor of that. I don't think you can guarantee employment. I don't want the government trying that. I think that interferes with the markets way too much, okay? I'd like to be somewhere between Spitzer and my friend Randall Wray, okay? But, of course, Obama's nowhere near either one of them. He's out all the way, or this way, all the way to the right. And then Glenn Beck calls him an uber-left radical. No. Randall Wray, a bit uber-left. Okay, Obama ain't within miles of him. All right. Now, we have a story here, quoting polls, etc., from the Associated Press. It turns out, we've been doing a lot of these stories lately, where I tell you and warn you, make sure you're sitting down. It turns out the voters in Massachusetts and in other places, when they do the polling, they find out they don't like the backroom deals that happen in healthcare. Gee, I wish I'd have heard this before, man. I wouldn't have advised Obama to do all those backroom deals and Harry Reid to do all those backroom deals. But we were saying here on the Young Turks the whole time, oh, yeah, give Ben Nelson the money. Who cares? Oh, yeah, no, drug companies, cut a deal. Let's make a deal. Turns out the American people hate that. Huh. I wish there was a show that was warning about that for the whole year. We said to Obama, hey, look, you pulled in the drug companies, you pulled in the insurance companies, you pulled in all these guys, and you made obvious backroom deals. It doesn't fly. People don't like that. What I loved in the Associated Press article was not only are the politicians belatedly recognizing that. Of course, Obama is blaming Congress. He says, me? I didn't make any deals. No, I was Reid and those guys made the deals with Ben Nelson, pretending that's the whole thing, right? When it's clearly not. So the element of surprise that they got caught off by this is greatly amusing to me. All right. Look, I got more on healthcare. I got to take a break here, okay? Let me come back and tell you a little bit more about healthcare. And then, look, there's some ass kickers in Congress, too. Let's give them their due, okay? So come right back, Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. All right, so I said healthcare. Let's do healthcare real quick. One other thing that I loved out of that Associated Press article I was talking about in the last segment is the Obama administration and some Democratic consultants have realize that we now have the, quote, Google electorate. And they're like, golly gee willikers, they figured out the backroom deals we were up to real quick. Back in the day, it used to take them a long time. Really? You don't say? Okay. So I love that they just woke up to that. They're like, turns out as soon as we do a deal, it's on that thing called the internet with its series of tubes. And it goes on the internet and they find out right away. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Just so you know, we're onto your ass. Okay? You don't get the old comfy TV where nobody ever challenges you anymore. Or challenged you back in the day. All right, now, what's going on with the latest on healthcare? So, Steny Hoyer laid out 4 different possibilities as to how they might proceed. One of them was we just don't do anything. That's it. It's dead. Sad day for everybody involved. Number 2 possibility is we just pass a Senate bill. Sad day for all the progressives. It is weak. It's watered down, but it is what it is, right? Third option is we just start over, and we start with a much smaller version, right? And he laid out those options to reporters and then said, well, obviously those 3 don't make any kind of sense. They all sound fairly disastrous. So that only leaves us with one realistic option, which is option number 4, which is we pass the Senate bill as is, but we come back and pass important elements of reform that the House wanted in a reconciliation bill. Now, that does make sense. That is the only viable option. The question is, what are they going to put in reconciliation if they go in that option, okay? And what's going to go first? Now, get a load of the guys in the Senate. This is hilarious. What they say is, yeah, pass our Senate version, the one that helps corporate America a lot more than the House version does. And then we'll think about doing reconciliation and all the things you want to do. Right? So the House side is saying, no. You do the reconciliation first, and then once you have that done, we can easily pass the other portion you've already passed. And now they're at a standoff. And guess where Obama is on this? As usual, on these issues, sitting on his thumb. Okay, I'm going to let Congress handle it. I'm going to encourage them to get together and work hard. Dude, no, you can't. You can't. Okay, and look, there's only one logical answer. Everybody knows that if you give in to the Senate and you let them pass the Senate version first, unless you have a solid, guarantee in a way that I cannot imagine, right? They're not going to do the House version. They're not going to go through reconciliation. They're not going to do anything else. They're going to say, check, all right, we already got our version through, who cares? And then when you come back and complain about it, they're going to say, oh, you don't understand. It's so hard to pass anything in the Senate. You need 60 votes, unless you're Wall Street's butt boy like Ben Bernanke, in which case you only need 50 votes. But, and we lost. They're not going to do it. Everybody knows it, right? So, on the other hand, if the Senate goes first and does the reconciliation and gets us the public option, et cetera, will the House side squelch on the deal and not do the Senate version? No, that's not conceivable. They have to do the Senate version, the one that already passed, because that's got all the good stuff like pre-existing conditions, et cetera, on it. And so there's bad stuff in the Senate bill that's already passed, but there's also good stuff in it. And the progressives want that to pass, as long as it gets mitigated by the other reconciliation bill. Now, I hope I haven't lost you, because I know it gets confusing, right? But the bottom line is, obviously, they have to go through reconciliation where they only get 51 votes, and that way they could put strong, real reform in there. And obviously, the Senate has to go first in that scenario. And it's obvious to everyone, except so far, as usual, the Obama White House and the Democratic senators. So if they're not going to play ball on that, then I think it's dead. I mean, and I say that not as something I want. I say that as, at this point, I don't even think the House Democrats, and I've been all over all the Democrats, and I've said they're weak a million times, right? But I don't think that the House Democrats, even they're weak enough to just crumble and only get the Senate version. Now, I might be eating my words later on that, because maybe there's no depth to how weak the Democrats can be. But if all they do is the Senate version, well, that's disastrous. But that's disastrous for everybody. That has the Cornhusker kickback in it. That has the Landrieu nonsense in Louisiana. And so I can't imagine that they would do that. So if the Senate and Obama won't budge on how much they want to sell out to corporate America, and the progressives in the House won't budge on these provisions they don't like, well, then you're not going to get a bill. So I can't wait to see what Obama's plan is. He should tell us, or he should at least give us a clue tonight as to which direction he wants to go, but it doesn't appear he's, based on the previews, we don't know. We're going to get the speech in a little bit and we'll find out. But based on the previews, it doesn't look like he's got a clear direction he wants to head in that. Okay. Now, I did say that there are ass kickers in the House. One, they're blocking this a complete sellout here, so that's good. And then number two, Marcy Kaptur was holding Tim Geithner, feet to the fire, and then she went on Dylan Ratigan's program. So first you're going to hear Marcy Kaptur speaking in the House, and then you'll hear Ratigan talking to her. Let's go to clip number 11.
Your chief of staff is the gatekeeper for access to you. Could you please provide his name?
His name is Mark Patterson.
Thank you. And for whom did he work before you selected him as your chief of staff?
He worked for the president's transition team.
No, before that. Which Wall Street firm did he work for?
Before that, again, this is a matter of public record, and you know the answer to this question. He worked for Goldman Sachs.
Oh, is that right?
The reason you get so many Goldman Sachs questions is because Goldman Sachs, quite honestly, is incredibly good at what they do and at the same time works in a lot of non-transparent ways and also has received immense financial benefit from all of this, all of which leads to the type of questions you saw there. And joining us now, Representative Kaptur. Representative, you bring up Goldman Sachs, lots of questions with the dealings with AIG, and when they knew that AIG would go bust. There's a belief that Goldman Sachs knew as early as 2007 that AIG Financial Products, which was the insurance company, was already busted at that point in time. Do you think the government should subpoena all emails between AIG and Goldman Sachs going back a few years?
I think that's a very good idea because, in fact, if you look at the people that testified today, if you look at who sat in the White House during the Bush administration, Joshua Bolten was actually the London office manager for Goldman Sachs. If you look at who's the chief of staff for Timothy Geithner today, it's someone from Goldman Sachs. Mr. Kashkari, who's handling the TARP, he was from Goldman Sachs. I mean, is there anybody that isn't from Goldman Sachs? And they had the gall this morning to suggest that the 225 emails or telephone calls that occurred between Mr. Geithner and Mr. Paulson between September 14, 2008 and Thanksgiving, they didn't discuss AIG at all. Doesn't that sound implausible?
It does to me. Now, that's a good start, okay? Now, wait till you get a load of Kaptur's idea on how to get that money back. Clip number 12.
Do you believe that Congress should enact clawbacks, as Representative Welch, for one, has proposed?
Representative Welch's bill is actually pretty conservative compared to mine. I have 100% clawback. And if you look at his is 50%. If you look at the manner in which these individuals and their companies and their private equity funds and their hedge funds are taxed, it isn't what the ordinary small business in my district pays, 35%. There's all these clauses and exemptions and the bonuses. How can they take these bonuses? Billions and billions of dollars when you've got unemployment in places like I represent,
we
which
all
is
get it.
17% unemployment.
Where do we stand with clawbacks from our... I think America completely understands that the money was taken from them. They're just confused as to why the Congress is not acting to get it back.
The American people are right. We should be acting. We in the House passed one measure, but it didn't encompass all of the firms that are getting these bonuses. My bill encompasses them all, and it takes 100% back.
Yeah.
Don't you think they owe it to the Republic?
Now, what's the chances Obama goes in that direction? He comes out tonight in the State of the Union and says, I think Marcy Kaptur's right. It's clawback time. I'm taking back 100%. Not likely. Okay, so I want you to understand, though, okay? If you say to me, hey, let's go take all the money Goldman Sachs made this year. I said, no, wait, that doesn't make any kind of sense. Hold on, now, how did they make that money, right? If they did it in their traditional investment banking business, and it has nothing to do with the backdoor bailout or any kind of bailout or easy money that they got from us, and now that's hard to distinguish because the easy money funneled to them through the Fed's a whole nother mess, right? But if it has nothing to do with it, of course they keep their profits and their bonuses. We don't have anything to do with that. But if you say to me, hey, let's take 100% clawback on the money that they got through AIG that they shouldn't have got. So they got about $13 billion when they should have only gotten about, let's be generous and say $3 billion. So we should claw back the $10 billion that we gave it to them as basically a gift. Should we claw back 50% of that or 100% of that? Yeah, of course, 100%. Why would we let them walk away with that $10 billion? That doesn't make any kind of sense. So if that's what Captor's proposal is, then I'm totally in. And it's so logical that you almost can't argue with it. And of course, it has no chance of passing. The more conservative version of taking 50% of the money back that belongs to us also has no chance of passing. And then Obama sits there and goes, gee, I wonder how we lost in Massachusetts. Gee, I wonder why the people are mad. It must be this Google electorate. They just keep finding out that information. We don't want them to find out. And it's funny because of all people, you think that Obama wouldn't be the one playing old school politics in a new age. But he is. He's playing the old school politics where he thinks nobody's ever going to find out. Oh, by the time the horse wagon takes the Pony Express and goes all the way from Washington, D.C. to Missouri, well, we'll have had another election by then. Yeah, dude, it takes a half a second to go on the internet and for us to all find out about this. Come on. All right, so now, here's another story that I told you about. I can't help it, man. I got to take the credit. I wish I didn't have to. But, you know, the facts force my hand. Now, what did I tell you as soon as the Supreme Court decision came down on corporations being able to spend money like American citizens and that they had a right to free speech? So that's interesting because there's a lot of multinational corporations. And some are partly owned by Americans and partly owned by foreigners. And then there are corporations that are completely foreign-owned. So do they also have freedom of speech rights and can they spend as much money as possible? And I said, my guess is that they're certainly going to make that argument, right? And immediately they began to make that argument and they started saying, hey, you know what? Corporation A, Corporation B, who's going to look into who owns what? And so when people realized the ramifications of that decision, then we had Alan Grayson, Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, and Chuck Schumer from New York, all Democrats saying, hey, wait. We got to pass a law saying that foreign corporations don't have the same freedom of speech rights as American citizens, and they can't buy and sell our politicians like our good old local corporations can buy and sell us, right? Now, I think it's disastrous any way you cut it, but obviously you have to agree with this law, right? Now, who doesn't agree with that law is, of course, the Organization for International Investment. You know what that is? That's the lobby group for all the foreign corporations, including Saudi oil interests. And they think that Representative Van Hollen has, quote-unquote, lashed out at foreign corporations. And here is one of their top lobbyists. She says, the concern over foreign influence in our political system is a red herring. They're already gearing up to spend a ton of money to influence our elections. Saudi Arabian diplomats have said very recently the number one threat to Saudi Arabia is the green movement, the environmental movement. If the United States transition away from oil, Saudi Arabia is in a world of trouble. So what are they going to do? They're going to spend a world of money to make sure that we don't get any environmental, push in this country, legislation, et cetera, and we just stick with Saudi oil. Now, they're going to get a lot of help from ExxonMobil, Chevron, et cetera, okay? So our American corporations and the Saudi corporations are going to get together and buy all the damn politicians because there's way too much money to be made by buying politicians. So if you thought the Supreme Court decision was disastrous before, now that you understand this implication, which is, I have to confess, I saw immediately, it takes it to a whole new level of disaster. And look, they're gonna pour in the money immediately to make sure that the new laws that would prohibit this do not get passed. You think people were saying, oh, maybe the foreign corporations, we had a guest on here, say maybe they'll wait till 2012 or 2014 or 2016. Who gonna wait? Who? These guys? No, they're rushing in headlong. Here's the money, come on. And they're gonna, look, these politicians are gonna be bought before you could know what hit you, man. If a Saudi company comes in and says, hey, look, you know what, I could run $28 million worth of ads against you, or I could run $28 million of ads in your favor. How's it going to go? Here's how it's going to go. That politician is going to go whoop, straight into the Saudi oil company's pocket. That Supreme Court decision was hideous. All right. Do I have time for the Tea Party guy, my producer? Should I take the break? I got time for a story? All right, let's do one. Okay. Now, there's a man by the name of Charles Allen Dyer. He's from Marla, Oklahoma. And he's worried, he's heard on television and radio that the government's going to come for your guns, okay? And that you better make sure you protect the Constitution of the country, and that you be ready for revolt when that, if they threaten the Constitution, as they are every day. There's a panic coming, right? And so he stands for morality. He stands for the Constitution. And in fact, when the Department of Homeland Security said, hey, we should be careful of right-wing groups with a lot of weapons, he went on the internet and blasted them, and he's calls himself a Tea Party leader, and he's with the Tea Party guys, right? And he says, yeah, no, that's outrageous. Well, let's find out what happened to this lovely guy. First of all, of course, he was caught with heavy weaponry. Sheriff deputies found several firearms, a Colt M203 with him, and I'm not a gun guy, so however that's said. And then get a load of this. Yet another Cenk Uygur prediction turned accurate. A 40 millimeter grenade launcher. Remember what I said? I said, look, they keep saying, I can have any kind of weapon I like. I can have a semi-automatic, I can have a fully automatic, I can have a machine gun. You know what? I can also have a grenade launcher. So, of course, he's got a grenade launcher. Now, you're saying, wait a minute, why did the government come in and seize his guns? Maybe Glenn Beck was right after all, right? Yeah, that's because he's accused of raping a 7-year-old girl. Height of morality. These guys are protecting the country, right? All right, so now look, I don't want you to make overly broad generalizations here. He doesn't represent the whole Tea Party movement. You can't have any movement that doesn't have whack jobs in it, okay? And so they're not responsible for him, and even Glenn Beck's certainly not responsible for him. He might have encouraged him to get guns, but he certainly didn't encourage him to go raping 7-year-old girls, okay? That's got nothing to do with anything in that regard, okay? But when the Glenn Becks of the world say, oh, it's the left that are violent, it's the left wing we have to be concerned about, it's the left wing that's going to cause some sort of violence in America, that is nuts, man. That's obviously not true. It's the right wing that's amassing all the weaponry, including grenade launchers, and doing crazy stuff with it. Okay, and by the way, here's some of the things that this guy said online, Charles Allen Dyer. With DHS, Department of Homeland Security, blatantly calling patriots, veterans, and constitutionalists a threat, all that I have to say is that you're damn right we're a threat. We're a threat to anyone that endangers our rights and the Constitution of this republic. I'm sure the DHS will call it a terrorist training camp, referring to some militia camp he was setting up. Well, then why were you criticizing DHS earlier, saying you're a threat, when you admit you're a threat? That doesn't make any kind of sense, right? And all under the guise of, he's protecting the Constitution. Please, okay? If you think that wasn't clear enough, in another video he says, I'm going to use my training and become one of those domestic terrorists that you're so afraid of from the DHS reports. Well, apparently we were right to be concerned, right? And he says, patriots, we are not overpowered. If we, united under one banner and fight for our children's liberty and the Constitution, our resolve is invincible to any standing army. I mean, this guy's talking about taking on the U.S. Army, and he had the nerve. If the allegations are true about what he did to that girl, he has the nerve to talk about children's liberties. It's not the left that's dangerous. Look at the evidence. Look at the facts. The guy who shot the cops in Pittsburgh, right-winger. Guy who shot the cops in Florida, right-winger. The guy that was amassing the bombs in Maine, right-winger. The guy who shot the abortion doctor, right-winger. And the guy who shot people at the Holocaust Museum, right-winger. This guy, right-winger. They're the ones with the weapons, and now the grenade launchers. They're the ones you have to be concerned about. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. So it turns out the State of the Union, of course, is at the top of the hour. So everybody calm down, okay? So that's coming up in a little bit. Everybody's going to have fun with that. All right, now, that gives us time to do some good news. And I've been looking forward to do some good news. All right, so point number one. In Oregon, the voters of that great state decided, hey, you know what? We got a massive budget shortfall. There is a couple of ways that we can raise money for that. We've been against raising taxes forever in Oregon, and we cut them and we cut them, or in fact, in Oregon, a lot of them did not exist, including property tax, etc. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and raise money from rich folks. We're going to raise money by taxing people making over $250,000 a year, and we're going to tax corporations. Now, they had a vote on this, and of course, the corporations in Oregon and some of the wealthy spent a lot of money saying, no, that's raising taxes. It's terrible. It's terrible. You don't understand. Oh, it's going to destroy all business. No, you don't want to do that. It's, bad timing and a bad economy. Oh, you're going to force everybody out of the state, la, 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 la. And here's what the good people of Oregon said just yesterday. Shut it. Zip it. www.shh.com. Okay. They passed the legislation. Those taxes are coming into place. So you know why? It's not because we want to tax the rich. It's not because, we're going to go get them or it's punitive or anything like that. It's because either we're going to shut down the schools or we've got to get the money from somewhere. And if you're making over $250,000 a year, you can afford a little bit to help to keep those schools running. As an example, and there are many examples of things they would have to shut down otherwise. So they're like, is that outrageous like Rush Limbaugh tells us and Fox News Channel tells us? It doesn't seem so outrageous to us. So we're going to go ahead and vote for it and see what happens. Now, it is courageous, though, because understand if individual states do this, they do risk some company flight. Now, it won't happen overnight, but, and Oregon had already very low taxes, in some cases, like I said, non-existent taxes, right? So I get it. But you know what would be better is if we did it nationwide. If you do it nationwide, then you don't have to worry about Oregon and you don't have to worry about other states that are going to get hosed if they're raising money off of people making over $250,000, but other states aren't, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, but you can see, even states that have been historically very anti-taxes, if given the opportunity, they say, yeah, well, we got to get the money from somewhere. And we don't want to shut these things down. We want our kids to go to school. We want to be able to have services so people don't die in the streets, et cetera, et cetera. So if you give the reason I tell you all that is when you hear from the media, oh, no, the American people are always against raising taxes for anybody under any circumstances. Don't believe the hype. It's not true. It's what they want you to believe. When put up for a vote, you see that side, our side, actually won. And again, a note of caution, this is not to say that you go crazy and you raise taxes on people making over $250,000 ad infinitum, okay? Enough to get you to where you need to be. And if you did it on a nationwide scale, look, especially on the industries, now that might be hard to distinguish industry by industry, that wound up getting all those gigantic bonuses in the first place because of all the financial misdealings. And you said to them, hey, we're going to do a temporary raising of your taxes so that we can pay for the giant deficits you caused. Would that make sense? Of course it would make sense. Would the American people be behind it? Unquestionably. The only reason it doesn't get done is because the politicians don't get paid by us. They don't work for us. They work for the bankers. Look, I don't want to overstate it, but you got to look at the realities and the facts on the ground. Why did this pass, by the way? It's not because the legislature passed it. It's because it was a referendum. And you believe the American taxpayers or the American people don't want the richest people in America tax to pay for some of this? Well, okay, put it to a referendum. See how it goes for you. It won't go well. Of course, on a nationwide scale, we can't do a referendum, but you see my point. All right, now, fun little story. They asked people, what television news organization do you trust the most? And funny enough, Fox News won. Okay. Then they asked them, what television organization do you distrust the most? This is general Americans. And Fox News won. Okay. It was both the most trusted and distrusted news source in America. 49% saying that they trust Fox News the most, which is a stunning number. Can't believe it's that high. And 37% saying they distrust them the most. But the other spreads were a little closer. CNN 39% trust, 41% don't trust. I guess the biggest spread is actually ABC, 31-46. But conservatives were gloating over the CBS numbers because they hate CBS. They hated Dan Rather in the past, and now that Katie Couric actually dared to ask Sarah Palin, the goddess, some questions, they hate her for it. So they came in at 32% trust, 46% don't trust, right? So one of the commenters on this public policy polling site, the people who did the poll, they say, Rupert said, "Hey, Katie, tell me how my ass tastes." Now that's funny. You got to give the guy his due, okay? And look, the guy who wrote the blog, I thought made an interesting point. He said, these numbers suggest quite a shift in what Americans want from their news. A generation ago, Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in the country because of his neutrality. Now people trust Fox the most precisely because of its lack of neutrality. It says a lot about where journalism is headed. No, but that's a good point, you know. Now, Fox is not really open and honest about it, right? But we all know anyway. I think a lot of people said, yeah, I trust Fox because they knew where Fox was coming from. And I suspect that if you ask people, do you trust Keith Olbermann or Rachel Maddow, that those numbers would be very high as well. Because you trust that you're getting what they say they're giving you. And you know Keith Olbermann's liberal, and you know Fox News is conservative. Now, it bothers me to no end that they won't admit it, but we all know it. So I think that's why the numbers for Fox were a little higher than expected. Okay, that's my guess. All right, so now, another piece of good news in some ways, Greenpeace is on the job. You know how we told you Byron Dorgan is retiring, and I like him in many, many different ways. I think he's done some great work as a senator, including telling us to not deregulate the financial industry 10 years ago. Some great speeches that we've quoted for you in the past, saying don't do it, this is going to lead to a financial calamity, and they're going to say no one could have seen it coming, but this is how deregulation leads to calamity. He was 100% right. But as he's retiring, he made a comment about how he's looking forward to doing some energy policy work in the private sector. And as soon as I saw that quote, I came on here and told you, oh, here we go. That means he's going to be an energy lobbyist. And it's very important that he not take action in the energy field, which he has not historically been good, at least according to us. He's not been on the right side of things. As a senator, while he's angling for a job afterwards as a lobbyist. And now Greenpeace has caught on to that, and they're demanding that Dorgan and his office say on the record that they will not try to negotiate for a job as an energy lobbyist while he's still a sitting senator. Now, of course, Dorgan's office pretends to be outraged by this. And they say, how dare you? We would never consider anything like that. We just sent out an, implicit message. If the energy lobby wants to be good to us, we're retiring soon. But other than that, how dare you? Okay, but you know what? I'm glad Greenpeace is doing it, and they're doing it in a public way, so that Dorgan knows, hey, listen, we understand that when you're a lobbyist, you're going to go to look to sell us out. But you can't do it while you're still a sitting senator within bounds of reason. Now, he never voted for, the Green movement. He never voted for environmental legislation that we like. He would argue that for policy reasons he didn't vote that way. And Dorgan has earned enough trust in other realms that you might actually believe him. But the reality is, of course, he did it because of the constituents in his home state. And he wasn't going to, he was going to support those guys. Those guys paid his bills, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I'm glad that Greenpeace is on it, and they're trying to keep him honest. And one final piece of good news, real quick for you guys. Obama tonight is going to talk about this bipartisan commission he wants to do to keep the deficit under control. It's a sham and a scam. It's meant to destroy Social Security and Medicare. If they really wanted to do deficit cutting, they would go after defense spending, they would raise taxes. That commission is going to do neither one of those things, okay? It's just it's something that the right-wingers have been trying for a long, long time. Now, what's the good news part of this? The Senate rejected the commission with 53 votes against. That happened yesterday. So, hey, some positive news out of the Senate. All right, now let's watch the president. Sign up for membership on theyoungturks.com and get the whole 3-hour show plus an uncensored postgame.